Mind the culture.
Mind your culture.
in
My
your
culture.
mind.
Culture in
Culture
mind.
and mind.
This is the podcast for the culture.
Hi, and welcome to another Mind Culture podcast. This time we are over the internet with Daniel Hellmann, aka Soya The Cow from Switzerland. He is a drag activist, a theater maker, and performance maker. He's a very interesting artist. We're gonna talk about the gender of a cow and how do you become drag queen and what does it take to have an influence as an artist. Please, if you like this conversation, do not forget to click like and subscribe. This is Mind Culture Podcast. Let's begin. You're the Soya the Cow. I'm so excited about your persona and about your artistic work.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time of your schedule. So, could you tell me my first question, and maybe it's everyone's question, why the cow?
Very good question. So, well, I mean, I was working on a project about meat in 2016 and 17, which was like a project with dancers and musicians, where I was curious about our relationship to death as a society, since I feel like we have pushed death so much to the outside of visibility. Like people die in hospitals or at home, especially in Switzerland or Germany. Like there's even like the mourning culture. It's happening privately, and so I thought there is this very ambivalent relationship to death, that it's absent and at the same time it's everywhere, because most people, let's say, eat dead bodies every day. We sit on skin of dead animals. We dress with dead body parts of others, but we just don't perceive it as that. So that was like my starting point with this whole relationship of inquiring relationships between humans and animals. And I realized very quickly for myself, like, oh my God, there is like a whole field that our art world doesn't really seem to be very much invested in, even though there is so many like justice discourses that are happening, which are extremely important, like inclusivity, diversity, which bodies are represented. But when it comes to non-human animals, they are completely absent of the discussion, or if they're present, they're more used like as a metaphor for human topics.
Right.
And then I did this play. We had censorship issues. 2 venues canceled the shows because of a scene where we did like a reenaction of an artificial insemination.
Okay.
So we had problems like that. And also I felt like it just didn't resonate that much with the programmers.
You mean when you put it on stage?
Yes.
In a theater setting?
Theater setting. I mean, it was human performance. It was not no animals that were inseminated, and the humans could give their consent to it, contrary to the animals, who are not asked if they want to be impregnated or not. So when this happened, I felt like super frustrated with this kind of hypocrisy. It's like a venue that is serving milk to their audience in the bar cannot like stand the fact that like criticizing how this milk is even produced, because without insemination there is no milk. Cows only have milk when they're having a baby. They're animals, like they're mammals, like
which they artificially get in the
Exactly.
process of dairy production.
So dairy means every year they're impregnated, and every year the baby is taken away and usually killed. And after 4 or 5 years, the mothers are so exhausted because of the overbreeding that they also get killed and transformed into burgers.
Right.
So having this knowledge, and I had it very late, I really thought cows just have milk like this. It just pours out of them because they're wonderful cows. Like I was from Switzerland. It's the land.
There is a big culture in Switzerland for actually some kind of admiration of cows, I would say.
Yes, but
they're
also
on every poster.
It's everywhere. Like the Swiss milk, like this, they got a lot of subsidies from the government to like market milk as like a pure, innocent, natural product, when actually it's a completely brutal, dirty and toxic industry that makes humans sick because of like cancer problems, cholesterol, and like so many health problems, but also environmental problems. And so I was fascinated by this kind of mythological self-image of the cow as like the connection to nature, which was so far away from the reality, where actually like livestock industry is literally destroying our planet and our health. And then I also found it very like interesting from a feminist point of view, um, because we have these discussions about like who has the right to control somebody else's reproductive organs,
Right.
who can decide like to use a body or not. And we are very clear
So
when
in
it
case of cow, it's totally taken.
cows, but also the other animals, with the chickens as
Mm-hmm.
much, with pigs, like we literally use their reproductive systems to make money and create food also. But it's like in my eyes, in my point of view, it's not food, it's violence.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point of view, I was like, okay, I need to do something about it, and I didn't know how. And
Mm-hmm.
my inspiration came actually from drag artists, drag kings and drag queens, who I got to meet in San Francisco. I had a 6-month artist scholarship from the city of Zurich, and they were so like on fire and like uh, naming things directly, like not doing like weird referencing. No, they were like Trump was newly on power, and they were just like
Right.
going on it against injustice, against racism, homophobia, transphobia. And there was like, I was just in awe of their courage. And I was like, okay, I need to be able to speak like that when I speak up for animals, rather than being always scared, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be the annoying vegan. Nobody wants to hear that. Like, yeah, I stand for something and I have to dare to do it. And so the idea came up of being a drag cow.
Have you been dragged before?
Not really. I mean, I have done a lot of like cross dressing as a little boy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I loved playing with my sister, wearing women's clothes all my childhood. And then I was doing like, I was in a boys' choir actually, and we always did like theater and sketch nights in the end, and there were no girls, so I was always playing all the girls, the princesses, the witches, the
Mm-hmm.
mothers, the chic lady, whatever I was. So I would say I had like a predisposition to that, which was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, something I just enjoyed always. But no, drag wasn't new, and it was like it was and still is such a deep learning process, because there is so many skills to know, from makeup to making outfits to walking in heels to there, it's a lot.
So I imagine this fascination comes from, first of all, for you, from this idea of wanting to change something, wanting to speak for the animals, and actually, not being okay with them being taken control of, actually, in a way, right? Is this something?
Yes, it comes from a deep sense of like uh, uncomfort with the state of the
Mm-hmm.
world. Like once you connect with the reality of these billions and billions of animals who are in factory farms, who are locked up in small cages in laboratories, who are in fish farms, like these conditions, they're
Yes.
once you connect to that, it's really hard to just go back to daily life, because the suffering is real. I mean, each of these individual animals, that's their full life. Like it's from their moment they're born to the moment they're slaughtered, that's what they experience. And so it's not a side topic, it's not something which is just like easily dismissed. And I know that there is many other important struggles to lead, but for me I felt like, okay, if I have a
That was the
platform
struggle that you were connecting with.
at that moment, yeah, I was really like, because I feel like these animals, they are not listened to. Like they're screaming, they're resisting, like every single day in
Mm-hmm.
a factory farm, they are trying to survive and doing their best. Some animals even manage to escape, or they recently I read a cow, she killed the farmer when he took her baby away in the dairy production,
Oh,
because she tried to defend her
okay.
baby. And so these animals resist, but their voices are not transported, and we have a language problem. Like we
Yes.
as humans don't
Don't
understand.
speak cow.
Yeah. So I see my role in a way, like as an artist, also like as a translator or as a storyteller, because it's very hard for these animals to tell their own stories. Or even like if you go out to meet them in their world, we actually can get a lot of information. Like we see their suffering, we see their joy, we see what is important to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to go there, and it's outside of the city. So like for people in the cities, for people in in the places where maybe the political decisions are made, like how can we tell
Mm-hmm.
the story of these animals?
So you think being an artist helps to tell the story? Because my question is like, what can an artist do? Like, okay, we have those very sophisticated types of thinking, in our profession. Like we are like talking about all this, the justice and maybe racism, maybe gender, maybe exactly like in your case, animal rights and so on. But my question is like, what kind of change can we actually bring? And have you been able to bring some change?
It's a really, really good question, the difficult one, I would say, because I have struggled with that a lot of times, like feeling a bit unsatisfied with the impact of my work. Like this first play I talked about, the Requiem for a Piece of Meat. I spent
Hmm.
like, I don't know, 1.5 years working on it. And then in the end, I was like, did one single animal benefit from this? Or
Question.
was I just busy making choreography and stage designs and concepts and yes, it did definitely make a difference because it has transformed me. I wasn't vegan before that. It really transformed my outlook. Half of our team changed their diets. Many changed back later.
Okay.
So it did start off something that was beyond the artistic, I would say, where
Hmm.
the intersection of like the artistic and the activist. And now I'm really trying in every project to kind of look at it from an artistic point of view and from an activist point of view, um, and not get lost in aesthetical questions because they're interesting. I still love like making art,
Hmm.
but I also love when the art actually can save a life. And one example I have, I was invited to perform for an exhibition in a farm where there was an art exhibition about humans and animals and how would the future of this relationship be. And they asked me to perform for the opening, and I was in a big dilemma because this farm produces eggs. So it means
Right.
there is, I don't know, there were like 350 chickens. And in egg productions, even in organic eggs, like all the chickens get killed after 1 year because the eggs are less normed. They might be a bit too big or too small, and then they cannot sell them anymore.
I
And
didn't know about that.
the egg rate goes down a little bit while they change their
Uh-huh.
feathers. Once a year, they change their feathers. And in this period, they have less eggs. And then it's cheaper to just kill all of them and buy new ones than to feed them through these few weeks of this change, which
So
is
even in
insane.
organic farms, even
Yes.
in organic
Yeah.
okay.
Even Demeter, that was a Demeter farm. So I was in this dilemma. Should I go there and kind of consent to this practice of like having all these chickens killed and people feel like even they do something great because they buy organic eggs, um, and then I was like, but if I don't go, there is no conversation, there is nothing happening. So in the
Right.
end, I demanded that I would only go if after my performance there would be a talk with the farmer about egg farming, so people would actually learn these things because we don't know. I also didn't know before like reading all that stuff.
Yes.
um, and I also demanded that I could save at least 3 chicken and bring them to an animal sanctuary. And
What's an animal sanctuary?
an animal
Like,
sanctuary is a place, it's like a farm that is not using animals. So it's a farm where animals
okay.
are coexisting with humans, but they're not there to serve as like, they're not there to serve human interests. They can just live safely and happily. Usually it's animals saved from slaughterhouses or rescued from horrendous conditions. And there I could like, yeah, I could in the end save 10 chickens. 7 went to
Hmm.
one specific farm, 3 to another one, and they could live while all the others they got killed like 2 weeks later. So there my art kind of was also literally saving 10 lives,
Hmm.
and I was very touched to like be able to bring a stone into rolling. And it's not always visible, it's not like we always know what is the impact of what we do, but I want to make sure at least like every now and then, like, does is there actually happening the thing that I project to happen? And if not, I have to change my strategy.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think like nowadays, for example, in our artistic production as well, we are also looking like, okay, can we travel somewhere where we actually go by train, or instead of plane and so on. Like this kind of questions are very present, especially like now if you write a project and if you mention that you take care of environment, like it does resonate with people, especially like I think in our countries, like I'm in Austria, you're in Switzerland. I think this is where it matters,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and I mean it's tricky. I mean, we are also like animals who need energy to live, so we need food, we need resources, and but like it's really important to question as artists, are we part of the problem or part of the solution? uh,
Yeah, I think it's great that you have this how to say, you have this story that you say. Like, I think from what I get from you is, like you're doing the art. Maybe you're not always directly saving life, but because you're telling the story, you maybe have a chance to influence someone. And I think it's really important, especially if you have a story like this, to actually go to the places where people normally don't listen to those kind of stories. And I think that's because it's like, for example, for me, like if I would be talking about, feminism or I don't know, different kinds of sexuality in front of audience that normally goes to the theater, that normally likes this kind of things, they already convinced. So if I make, artwork that speaks to them, like I'm not bringing any change. But if I talk with my friends who don't do art and who don't have artistic interest, and if I talk with them about, points of view and show them things, tell them the story, this is maybe where you can actually change something.
Yes, I agree 100%. And but even in the art world, for me, it has also
Yeah.
before been always. I always like to go to topics with not one single opinion. Before, I was doing a lot of projects about sex work,
Mm-hmm.
because it's another field where like it's also a question about like power, body, relationship. So it's very connected for me with animal rights in the sense of like we have some morals that we think are justified, and then we have discrimination, stigmatization, and people or animals, they literally like pay a huge price because other people just have opinion about something they don't really know. So like doing work that is demanding sex worker rights and the destigmatization or decriminalization has been really important part of my artistic work before. And also there, like it's not, maybe in Switzerland a bit more than in other countries, but like I was touring in, let's say in France, in a place where
Mm-hmm.
some people put like stickers on the poster of the festival, sex prostitution equals rape, and they were talking like this, and there was like huge protest about a show that talks about sex work in a positive way. So these are the places that I'm interested in. I think it's interested to go to these like gray zones and not be too comfortable. um,
Uh-huh.
so I'm still like terrified sometimes, like that's why I also need Soya, I would say, as a character, because she can be much more demanding with an audience than me. If I would just come and like fully tell people what I think, it would be like a bit obnoxious, but doing it as this drag cow with a ton of makeup on the face, walking on hooves and these gigantic horns, it's like
Mm-hmm.
people start to listen when otherwise they would just shut down. So it's something I feel is really helping me. And
I
also
mean,
she helps me to get courage or motivation when otherwise I would be like frustrated because things don't move quickly enough with the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. Like, whoa, we need to move our asses. And,
yeah, biodiversity is a big one. I think for me, especially, like I can relate to that maybe even the most, because you might be experiencing some species as a child and then they're gone.
yeah.
They're just gone. And this idea that you can kill off everything, it's crazy. I find it, especially with the fish and
Mhm.
all the sea animals. I think it's a very big thing that I think not a lot of people talk about,
Yeah, I
and not a
think,
lot of
yeah.
people care because it's in the ocean.
Mm.
Like I can almost relate. I can imagine people almost relating, to the uh, to your topic, to the farming topic, because it's there and you can see the videos and pictures and so on. But for example, fish, I mean,
Yeah,
fish in the deep sea. Who cares about fish in the deep sea?
yeah. But I think, yeah, the amount of like the beauty and diversity and ways of being in this world, like it's so
Mm-hmm.
abundant, and at the same time, yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking to connect with the fact that like the way we have lived as humans in the last, I don't know, 250 years and even before, like how much we have destroyed. It's
Yeah.
And I think really it's time we need a new self-image of humanity, like this idea of human dignity and humanism, and like the human experience as like the pinnacle of what is happening in the universe. Like there is so many other forms. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
still watching animal documentaries and I'm just in awe about like what is going on. And also like as a queer artist, also like I love seeing queerness in animals, like seeing
Okay.
seeing
Okay.
like two goats falling in love with each other, two like male goats, or like watching like transgender fishes who change their gender at a certain point. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
so much variety, there's so much. Giraffes are much more engaging in homosexual sexuality than in heterosexual sexuality. That's the norm. There is salamanders who have 5 different genders. There's like they have different necks and different colors, and they really have different social roles given their gender. And it's just like it's not this stereotypical Noah's Ark idea with one male lion, one female lion, and they wait, and then they go into the ship, and then there's like it's so much more diverse. And if we change the way we look at nature, like not as this
Mm-hmm.
kind of way heteronormative and with the human as the top of the pyramid, like no, we are nature, we are part of it, we're not outside of it. Like we are made of nature, we are all ending up in the same dirt as the animals. Like the energy and the material on this world, it's always the same, it's just circulating.
Yeah, definitely. I love to watch David Attenborough, who, by the way, is a very big activist as well.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this one on Netflix. I forgot the title, but there's this whole series on Netflix where he's narrating, and it's really beautifully made.
Yeah,
I will check it.
I love that he
But
also says in this film, like he's like, I have been one of these lucky ones because he got to
yeah.
travel the world before realizing, like, oh, this way of living is actually also harming. And that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like we always think that what we do and our project is so important that it's more important than like slowing down. It's more important than the climate crisis. But we have to really question, like, do we need, like, how can we make art without like accumulating new shit? I mean, as a drag queen, I mean, it's really a problem, like new looks, new this, new, and it's like, wait, that's not my point. So I have to find ways to reuse stuff, to borrow stuff, to like really think about upcycling and recycling. And it's not so easy actually, but it's, if we don't do it, who will?
I have to say that as a contemporary dance maker myself, I can totally relate to the whole idea of recycling everything you have, because I think, I mean, you are a starving artist after all,
Yes.
and there's, like, I think I had so many costumes that just were going over different solo works, like no problem.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
I
the
don't know
same,
how it is in
even the movement,
Switzerland,
but the same with the
but
material, no, even
yeah,
the material in the shows. And I think also like
yeah.
topics, like when I did work before, sometimes I was doing one project on one topic and then like next
Hmm.
topic, and it's like, this is not sustainable work. I have basically no deep knowledge. I'm just like doing tourism in something I haven't, yeah, I don't know anything about. I make a work, present it, like it's, I
Hmm.
get it where it comes from, but it doesn't make sense. Like now with the question of animal rights, I've been in that for what is it, 6 years soon, and I mean, of course, my knowledge and my depth is much bigger. I have more to share. I have more to give and more expertise. And so we need this slowness and staying with something, even though it's tricky, and like maybe finding a new form for the same content and then reworking something. I really think that's what we have to do, rather than just creating content that nobody wants to see, because we all
Hmm.
create too much in the end.
Yeah, there is definitely this. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. but it's almost like it's demanded from you because everything is just so quick, with the social media and just like the job market accelerating. Everyone cannot keep the same project. The project's durations get shorter and
Yeah.
shorter. I remember when I started to work as a freelance dancer, like there was a project taking 3 months to make, and now 3 months to make it, it's a very long time. Now it's usually production is like what, 3 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, but this is I think that everything is accelerating. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And then we do more projects because yeah, it's shorter. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But of course, we are in such a complex logic where we have our economies, we have
Hmm.
our schedules, the venues have their logics and their fears. What it will be the money givers and the politics and the audience. It's
Yeah, that's politics. We're going
yeah.
into politics. That's very complicated
I mean,
realm.
that's a good point that I wanted to talk before about that. Like, I have
Go
doubted a
ahead.
lot about like, should I still do art or should I just do like politics? Or and
Hmm.
but the thing is, like, I don't see myself going to all these meetings trying to wear like a suit. No, I'm exaggerating, but like, I
Uh-huh.
I like to dress up with a ton of makeup and be this weird figure that people are like, what was that? And that's my contribution because I'm alive doing that. I don't know. I feel like that's it's not something I impose on myself because I think it's more efficient. It's self-expression, and hopefully I have an impact. But I don't want to instrumentalize my own life to reach a political goal because I don't want that we instrumentalize other animals. So why should I instrumentalize myself?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is a luxury though, in a way, like to be able to do, what you love. I think in the society, I think, and being an artist, of course, it comes with all the struggles associated with it. Like, of course, it's difficult to survive. Of course, you're dependent on funding, you're dependent on your fan base. That's like the only way you survive, and you have to work often without being paid. But in the end, you have the luxury of doing what you love. So,
Absolutely.
and that's something that a lot of people give up.
I have a beautiful story about that actually, because there's
Please.
something about like freedom and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of
To opposing forces.
negotiation with yourself. And I was visiting recently in Italy, actually, an animal sanctuary, also a place where they have rescued, I think, about 300 animals. There's cows, there's pigs, goats, llamas, chickens, turkeys, geese, like dogs, like an amazing place. They all have a free area, huge area on a hill where they can just go wherever they want. There is no fences. The animals can interact however they want. And at some point, they told me, the founder, there is a wild pig who moved in. She came from the hill. Her name is Gina. She saw the other pigs living there, all the animals, and she was like, wow, that looks so cool. So she basically just joined this community of animals as a wild animal. And first, the other pigs kind of chased her away and didn't want her around. And until she managed to kind of get accepted in the group, and now she lives there. And why I tell this story, it's just like I think in this there is there is a price for freedom, and
Mm-hmm.
there is also a space I hope where we do have freedom, but also through community we can have kind of both. We don't have to be in this kind of neoliberal working money making machine where we have jobs that have no goal other than making people consume something they don't really need. We can kind of find in new communities ways of existing where we do have freedom because this pig she can leave whenever she wants, but the attraction of being at this place with these other animals is big enough. I mean, she also gets food for free, but it
Yeah, it's a
works.
society.
Yeah, but it can work, and it has to do with resources and solidarity, and people donate money to this place so they can exist and show the world like what actual true coexistence between species can look like.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really. I think there is a way to be useful as an artist. I think you're not like, if you're just doing it for yourself, it might be also beautiful, and there is usefulness in not being useful at all as well, because I
Yes.
think like it's basically being able to to oppose the societal tendency towards dictatorship. So I believe totalitarianism in that case.
Mm.
And I think just bringing in any kind of disorder is often in a moderation, of course. It's a positive thing, but I also think that an artist can have a function in society, and I think storytelling is definitely one of those functions.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have to be an expert even, but if you already make people think in a direction of a topic, it's already a great value, because people don't I think people don't have often time to think, because you chase, job after job, like task after task, chore after chore.
Mhm.
And like, I find myself like I outsource my thinking as well, but if I'm on the project, I feel like if I'm making my own work, I feel like at least through this I'm learning new things, and at least through this I'm able to do my research and actually read. and
It's a
and
it's
it's not only for me, but it's also for something that I'm creating, and it's like extra motivation to actually educate myself.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful way to put it. It resonates a lot with me what you say like this. And yeah, it's beautiful, and I think this we have a lot of skills in the arts, also like process wise, or like dealing with restrictions. Maybe also make something happen in
Hmm.
spite of the mess, and maybe we're also a bit magicians, because we create like moments and beauty, and we need that. I mean, I guess we will need it even more with like, I'm very pessimistic with the next few years. I mean, there's many reasons to be pessimistic, but we will see so much conflict, so much like climate refugees, so much like things dissolving, and like I think we need to be able to imagine like solidarity on a completely new level. And we have seen now with maybe a tiny glimpse, like unfortunately or fortunately, with like the Ukrainian refugees, like be like, okay,
Hmm.
actually there is space and there is resources and there is openness. Yes, and we're gonna need much more of that.
And as being from Poland, I can say there is also a lot of tolerance, as opposed to what they say, in the West. And there is a lot of openness in Polish people, who
Yeah,
actually deal very beautifully with the crisis. So
incredible,
uh,
incredible.
it's yeah, I'm really proud of the people that are in Poland and actually help the refugees, because I don't know if you know, but most of the care about the refugees, the very big majority of just taking care of their food and sleeping, is done on a voluntary basis.
Hmm.
It's not from the state. It's in fact, I would say the state is not doing very well, but the
Hmm.
people are.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's honestly like, I think, yeah, that's. I mean, we have this capacity, like we are able to give much more once we give up on some stuff we don't need. Like, I know we are so addicted to our habits also sometimes, and when we have no other
Hmm.
choice, maybe then we can actually just give them up and have space for something else,
Absolutely.
including myself. I'm completely part of these problems. Like it's seeing like getting stuck in patterns. We're like, wait, what? And then we get into this logic of like, also like, I don't know, funding, and there's like, okay, the funding system is like this, so I have to adapt. And it's like, oh wait, what is actually the core of like, why do we do these things, or what do we have to say? And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like, thinking outside of the box, I think this is what makes maybe you an artist, because I think if you start to be part of the system too much, then you're just a part of the system, and then Where is the creativity?
Yeah, but it's even there. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could choose topics that were easier. It's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, but you choose topics that are close to your heart, and I
Yeah.
think this is, and I think, no, because you said you're pessimistic. I'm sorry to hear that, but like I myself, like I also love to work with the topic of catastrophe, end of the world. Like this is my favorite. I don't know where it's coming from, but this is where I find beauty, and I don't know. It's a bit perverted in this way, but I don't know. There is some incredible beauty in I don't know, decay, distraction, suffering. Not that I'm promote. I would not
Hmm.
like to be suffering to exist, but somehow you said in the beginning like to be closer to death, and I think for me like doing art, especially doing art on stage, is a little bit like death.
Hmm.
It's a little bit like dying because
Yes,
you're
and
losing
yeah.
control and you just are in front of the people, you're completely exposed, and like I think you sometimes can reach this moment of where like they say, I don't know, that I read it a lot of times. They say like in the last moments before you die, like your whole life comes in front of your eyes. And I think this is a little bit what happens when you are really in the moment. And I think on stage you are really in the moment, and this can happen also. Like you suddenly have those thoughts. You suddenly like consider everything you have done always. I
Yes.
don't know if you can relate
No, I can relate.
this.
I can relate. I don't think it happens always in the performances.
Yeah,
Like, it's
sure.
the bliss moments, I would say, but they definitely do
Mm-hmm.
happen. And I also terribly missed them during Corona. It's really like,
Mm-hmm.
but then I I also feel like we also have this weird image of nature and harmony, which is also very wrong. Like, uh,
Tell me.
I'm trying to connect the two thoughts and not fully clear yet about that. So
There is injustice in nature,
there is
definitely.
injustice and cruelty, and things are also very banal. Like, I know there is this
Mm-hmm.
idea of like the art and the moment and the present and death, like the disaster. And then there is also like, yeah, the car drove over the mouse is dead. It's very, there's also
Mm-hmm.
this kind of very pragmatic, simple, the show is over, it's gone, like very, there is also this side which I see where we have to also accept the banality of our existence.
Yeah, definitely. There is a lot of banality. Yeah, like, oh, I sweat, so I stink,
Yes,
you know?
and then we wash, and then at some point I mean, I've experienced some like very sad things or traumas with losing close people, and there is this moment, for example, when you think the world is over, and then at some point you have to decide to eat something because you're hungry. And it's
Yeah.
so absurd. It's like the world is falling apart, and you think about eating something, and this moment, I don't know, this of tragedy meeting basic physical needs, meeting ridiculousness
Mm-hmm.
and self-awareness. I love these moments personally. It's like it's there's something about them which I find very poetic and very true. Like that things.
Interesting. So it's a kind of catharsis of banality in a way.
Yes, because yeah, exactly, the catharsis of banality, and it's mixed with also these big ideas. I'm very romantic in a way, like I have this,
Mm-hmm.
and Soya especially has this thing of like Soya will really like change the world. She will close down all slaughterhouses. She will be this cow that is doing it. And then also she's just literally like a clown with glue on her eyes and smeared over makeup, and
Mm-hmm.
so this coexistence of these two, yeah, the complete earnestness and absolute ridiculousness. For me, it helps me
Yes.
to have like mission and lightness, because if I don't have the
Mm-hmm.
lightness, ugh, I become heavy for myself, like, and for my surrounding. And if I don't have the mission, I find it a bit cynical. If you're only in the lightness, then it's like, hey, so, but how to balance and become like a virtuosic musician, let's say, between these states? I mean, that's I guess it's a lifelong conversation also. Yeah.
I think it's a great advice for generally for the process of art making. And I think like if I was today coaching someone to make, a new work in contemporary dance, for example, like
Mhm.
I would tell I could repeat what you just said, because it, it's something about not taking yourself too seriously, but also being able to take yourself seriously when it really matters. And I think the balance between those two, like also like I'm surrounded a lot by those examples of those pat opposite patterns. Like I know artists that work in complete seriousness, and I know they take themselves way too seriously, especially in the beginning of their career. Like this is, the most important artwork I've ever done. This is so important, and so on. And I know also those artists that, like you said, I think they're a little bit cynical, and they don't take anything seriously. And I think maybe even myself, I've been in both of those places. But I think the more I work, the more I realize like it is important to allow for both.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think it's also important that we allow ourselves to maybe stop doing art at some point. Like
Yes.
I think it's really good to do something else. I mean, sometimes like now with the pandemic, I've seen people who got stuck in trying to postpone their dates and they were completely in
Mm-hmm.
the same logic, and other people they just did something completely different, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe now they go back to making art and they have just another experience that enriched them. And the pandemic was maybe just like a opportunity for that, but we can always like reinvent who we are. We don't have to stay artists, we don't have to stay anything. And I think that's also something I find very liberating. I always say that's my last project, and then oh well, there's another one. This is gonna be my last one.
Oh, that's a great thing to say. This is my last project, and then again, this is my last project. It's a great point. I like this. It's like a mind hack.
Yeah, and then you do what you really like to do also, maybe if it's your last one. Yeah.
Okay, great. Tell me about being drag. Like I want to learn. Tell me about your experience, because you said you are coming to drag not from drag, but from having the experience of creating theater shows, if I'm correct,
Yes.
performances,
Yeah.
and then you decided to do drag. So my question is, how do you become drag? What steps do you take? What is the preparation? And maybe they have so many questions, but like
I mean,
there
drag.
is for sure the physical preparation, there is a mental preparation, there are things that you have to learn to do. Tell me all about it.
I mean, there is a long culture of like drag or forms of drag that are very different. There is drag which is very much about like female impersonation, where it's about like really
Mm-hmm.
looking and acting, or like having the habitus of like, let's say, a rich woman, for example, or like a fashion model or something like this, or like a pop star. But there is also a big history of like in Germany of a Polittunten, of like uh, kind of trashy drag. You put a wig on and some makeup, and then you go on the streets and demand that the state intervenes and supports like people who have AIDS. Like there's this kind of
Okay.
also like now I think we see with the visibility of like RuPaul's Drag Race, this TV show, and other like mainstream drag queens, mostly still like who have huge success. It's a certain type of drag, I would say, but there is like people who do drag more like monsters. There's many different scenes. A lot of it is organized, like I would say, in families. So usually you need like a drag parent who helps you for your first experience, and it's somebody who will
A drag parent.
drag mother or drag father or
Uh-huh.
drag monster, drag dragon, who knows.
Uh-huh.
Somebody recently asked me if she can be my drag calf.
Okay. So you had some kind of mentor or coach?
So I like the first time was a very close friend of mine. Her drag name is Mazi Mazeltov, and she put me into drag. It was before Soya. I was
Mm-hmm.
um, my name was Immanuela Kant, like the philosopher, and so yeah, the first time we were just like talking about what kind of makeup I imagine, and then you really do this whole. I mean, the face transformation is the key, I would say, and then you add some clothes
Okay.
and wigs, and ideally you go out to the world. And if you're scared, you just make a photo in front of your bathroom mirror. and and then, I mean, you have to learn all these different things. You start maybe acquiring some costume elements, you go thrift shopping, or you I had the luck that a drag queen who stopped being a drag queen was like, you can all my stuff, here you go. I asked other drag queens or for advice. You watch YouTube
Mm-hmm.
videos. I watched a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race also before doing drag myself, just because I think it's a great show, showing queer people on mainstream TV in a very like a way that I find very attaching. Even though I think it's still a pity that it's still only a certain representation of queer people and
Mm-hmm.
queer experiences. Um, and then it's just a lot of learning, but also a lot of difference. Like, I'm a musician, I'm a singer and a theater maker, so my drag, I'm not so interested in doing lip syncs, for example. That's not something I'm interested in, so I'm not doing it. I'm fine, like there's different forms of uh, and but then also, like, now I have to say also, like, I wouldn't even say so much that Soya is really a drag queen or a drag cow. Soya is more like it's my alter ego, it's a
Uh-huh.
fantasy creature that uses a bit of drag, but also uses a bit of 80s pop music, or like Soya uses um, so drag is an element, but I don't have to, like, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm a woman. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm a cow, because people still know I'm not. I just
Yes.
take some
Yes.
signs. I have maybe like some signs that make it clear, okay, this is not somebody who is clearly a woman or a man, but somebody in between. And the same with the species. Soya is like a species bending creature. Like, there is
Mm-hmm.
human elements, but there is cow elements, and
So maybe can I ask you just quickly, what would differentiate like a drag character from any other kind of character? So, for example, if I look at Daft Punk performing in
yeah.
masks, that's a character. Dead Mouse performing in masks, or MF Doom, or a lot of musicians actually do that. But I wouldn't say MF Doom is drag. So I'm wondering, what is the part that makes it drag?
I mean, for me, clearly, I would say a lot is to do the makeup. There's a certain
Mm-hmm.
makeup style. Like, if I would just like I cover my eyebrows, for example, so that gives me more space to then draw these gigantic eyes, which is very typical. When people see that, they think, "Oh, drag." Um,
Okay.
if I would, like, just, I don't know, put a thick brown line here over my eyes, or just some cow print on my face, but without like a drag makeup, then they would rather think, oh, it looks like somebody's children's birthday. Like, but they
I
wouldn't
see.
associate like drag. Um, so I think it's like the style of makeup. It's also maybe the extravagance of the costumes. It's high heels, but nothing of this is compulsory. There's drag queens who don't wear high heels, and great, there can still be amazing drag queens. Like, I don't think anything of this by itself is its own. Um, but what I love about drag is also this idea of reinventing the same character, but in different ways. So there is like,
Uh-huh.
uh, for example, I have different headpieces. Some of them have very small horns, and some of them, now I have a new one which is like this gigantic, beautiful white horns. I've not worn it yet in public because the show got postponed. But they're variations of me as Daniel and Soya. That's like a spectrum as well. Sometimes I'm dressed as Soya, but I talk about myself as Daniel. And sometimes uh, I have a lot of like cow stuff. I have a cow print clothes. I have latex udders between my legs, horns. So sometimes this is very present, and sometimes it's much less. It's just like horns, and the rest could be more like an alien goddess, but a
I see.
cow
I
alien
see.
goddess.
I see. Because like I read a little bit from your press note on your website, on your wonderful website, and actually at some point I got confused because when I hear you like you refer to the Soya as she, but in the press note it often written as he Daniel, and then he Daniel is Soya, but then Soya is she. So I got really confused in this. So I'm wondering what is your stance here?
It's a very good question also, because like the pronouns question in general, I think we are aware it's a sensitive topic, and um, for many people it's really important because like they don't align with the pronouns that other people give them, and
Mm-hmm.
it creates like a sensation of like not being seen and not being heard. And I think that's why it's so important that we speak with the pronouns to people that work for them. And for some people it's very sensitive and others don't care. I have trans friends who are like whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
can say she, he, them, I don't care. And for other people it's really important. For me, in my personal journey with that, I mean, I was born in the 80s, so I think if I was born later, I would probably have thought much more about my own gender identity, but it was not really an option. Even being gay was already a little bit like, ugh. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I go by he as Daniel, or by them also. That's fine. It doesn't hurt me when people like say talk about me as a man. But I have other
Mm-hmm.
people around me who like if their dad says more my son, then it's like oh, my son. I'm not your son. I'm your child. You know, it makes something. And Soya, I use she her pronouns because she's a dairy cow. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah, that's logical.
it's just how it is. You know, like dairy cows are. Um, I don't think they care so much about the pronouns they get, but um, it's good to highlight the fact that it is also like the animal industries are extremely gendered, and there's gendered violence. Like the male calves get
Mhm.
killed, all of them immediately. The female calves become mothers and as soon as they're fertile, and that's the logic. I mean, it's brutal, and so in that logic, I think it's important to speak of Soya as a female cow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even though she's also like gender fluid.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Okay, so tell me, what's the preparation to be drag? Like, what do you do? So let's say you have a performance. What are the steps, and how long does it take?
I mean, it really depends which performance I do. Because I have
Mm-hmm.
done Soya for me is really like a multimedia practice that goes in many different contexts and media. So I did like record music, I have music videos, I did photo shoots, but then of course I have a theater show, which is a one woman show. Um, there it's like a normal play, just I have to add 3.5 hours of getting into makeup and costume.
Okay, okay.
So it's a bit longer, and after you have to remove the makeup. Um, if it's a concert, I do a live concert. Depends. Sometimes I work with visuals, so we have like setup, and I mean the technical aspects are always there. But then always, yeah, you have to add like 2.5 hours of time for the makeup,
So two
and
and a half hours is the extra drag
ideally, I would
makeup
say,
time.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I can do it in less time. I'm not the best makeup artist. Also, like I had to really learn it. It's not my passion. I spent rather more time reading a
Uh-huh.
book, or I was working a lot in an animal sanctuary in Switzerland as well. Then I cleaned the horse poo rather than practicing my makeup. But that's me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. I still want to learn. I will learn, but sometimes I work collaboratively with makeup artists if it's like an important video shooting or something. Um, so yeah, no, it takes a lot of time, and then it depends if you also have fingernails and you have to add them, and you have to prepare the outfit, of course, much before. I mean, you need to know
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to wear. I have to pack my stuff. That's a pain in the ass. It's like so much, like all the makeup stuff, the costumes, the horns, the shoes, this and that, and then I also need clothes for Daniel after the show. So it's like
Oh
it's a
wow.
lot of like carrying suitcases. It's complex in that sense because it's really like a second person. It's like having a child. You know, when
Just in
you're
suitcases.
you have a parent, so you have to pack for your
Hmm.
child and for yourself, and then the child is crying while you have. It's a bit like this,
Yeah,
and
but your child has a lot of clothes.
yes, true. A lot of
In a
clothes,
way.
a lot of special needs, and then if you forget
Yeah.
something, it's hell. Like I don't know, I'm somewhere backstage, and like, oh no, I didn't bring my shaver, and like,
Oh,
oh fuck, and like these kind of things. It's a lot of these little things. If you forget one of them, then it's not good.
and you're like you shave for soya.
I do. I don't even know why. To be honest, no, I do.
Yeah, that's
I
a
mean,
question.
cows have hair everywhere. Why do I shave? No, I kind of like the transformation more personally. I
Okay.
think that's why I do it. Um, just also because it's already so confusing as a project, like cow and drag and this and that, and then like with the beard, it's maybe one layer too much. It's an
Mm-hmm.
assumption. I'm not even sure. I just do it, even though it gives me pimples like hell after shaving, and then the
Mm.
makeup. Like it's the price of drag is very high. But,
Yes.
yeah,
Tell me, I'm curious. What's the price of drag? Because I think I imagine like walking on heels. I never walked on heels, so I have no clue. But
I
I've
mean
been doing a lot
that's
of
so.
ballet, and
Ah,
that's
okay,
already.
yeah, nice. Yeah, so you know how to be terrible with your body. It's you just push through. It's a bit the same mentality. Like your feet hurt, shut up and
Okay,
do it. It's like, it's the
I
similar
see.
mentality. Um,
And you pretend everything is fine.
Exactly. But you also, with the time, you find out which kind of shoes work for you. Not all
Okay.
heels are the same. Some heels work for a live performance, some work only for a photo shoot.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And wait, what is the price? I mean, the price, there is like, of course, it's like the most complex for me is like, it has been 3.5 years that I have been, or like 4 years since I started with the idea. And it's like basically having a split personality. It's really weird. Like if I'm going to a yeah, I mean, I try to buy everything in thrift stores that I wear or borrow stuff, even better. But I'm there, and I kind of have to decide if I look for stuff for myself or for Soya, and I cannot do both. Like my brain has to.
Mm-hmm.
It's she takes up a lot of space in like my house, but also in my thoughts. It's like having like I have my partner. She's really sometimes like I need a break of Soya. She takes too much space, as this third person in this relationship.
Whoa.
So it's good to
Okay.
get breaks. It's good to get breaks sometimes where I'm just like I'm myself. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
a holiday. So yeah, you're in your cupboard for 3 weeks. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you.
I get it. I get it. No, but it's a beautiful for me. Like as I think a performer, it's always interesting to assume other characters, and I think to be able to live as a character, an art of itself. I think.
It's the first time I'm doing it. Also, I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
fully actually. No, it's I had one show which was kind of auto fiction called
Mm-hmm.
Traumboy about sex work, which was a character, but it was very similar to me, but it was not me. And
Mm-hmm.
I I did this show for like 7 years. So
Mm-hmm.
this character has also been kind of like living a bit like next to me, and I forgot about it. And then I had another show. I was like, oh wow, it still works. I was always surprised that the show still worked. Now I did one after almost 7 years after the premiere, and the audience loved this character. They really fell in love with this character, and even me, I was like, oh, I like this character. And so I had this experience in a way, but Soya, of course, it's even more intense. It's just like because the extravagance, it takes also more space in my head, and it's more preparations. But also such a variety of opportunity. I'm really grateful for like uh, I can do like one-on-one artist walks. I do concerts. I do protests in front of a few thousand people, and I did the Voice of Germany in Soya the Cow. Like I just have a variety of completely different experiences in the art context, in
Mm-hmm.
for a NGO. Like it's really enriching to be more agile than like with a show that has to happen in a black box with a certain stage design, and
Yeah,
it
this is
bring
something actually I wanted to ask you, but you already answered. But I still ask you: is basically who is your audience, and who who wants to see it, and maybe another question is like, how do you make even more people want to see it? Because there's always our question here in the
Yeah.
podcast, like, how do you make more people attracted to what you're doing?
I think I have very different audiences. So some of them are context related. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
in a contemporary theater, then it's more the audience of this venue who will come. But I did concerts also on animal sanctuaries, for example, and then it's more the community of this place that comes, which is people who already care about animals. If I'm on a big protest, for like climate justice, and like it's amazing because I have like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of people like, yeah, because they're convinced already, or many of them already. And uh, whereas I tried performing in nightclubs for like more like queer parties, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Ooh, this doesn't work that much because it's not the best context. People don't want to hear about
Yeah,
slaughterhouses when they just want to party."
I see, I see.
So it's
And I
it's
imagine a lot of them also eat meat.
of
I
course, I
imagine.
mean, everywhere is like this, but sometimes people have availability to question,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes not. And if you go to a specific show in a theater about this topic, even though you might eat meat, you enter a space of like self-reflection consciously. But if you're just in a bar and then you expect drag, and then there's this cow coming telling you like, no, I mean, this it's more
Mm-hmm.
tricky. I still did it sometimes. So there's all these different audiences. On social media, I'm trying to also work quite a lot online, especially with the pandemics, but because also reaching more people, I think there my community is a lot of like vegan people, but also a lot of like artsy queers who like the project, even though they do eat meat, let's say, but they're still kind of ooh, and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, something like this, I would say.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Maybe the last thing here is I want to try something different to all the other podcasts that I've been doing, and that is I'm trying out a format, and I'm trying out a format that may be a little bit. It still needs a little bit of development, but I would love to ask you uh, your relationship to like the common myths about the profession that you're in, or about the artistic profession that you're in, because I imagine like being an artist is such a uh, and especially being such a specific artist is very foreign to a lot of people. So I imagine if someone is listening who doesn't really know so much about drag, they probably have those questions. And I wonder what are your relationship to those questions
I'm
are. They're not
curious.
my questions. I found them on Huffington Post, not the best website. But let me just. These are the common. Apparently, according to them, these are the common myths to being a drag. So I'm wondering
Ah,
about
okay.
your relationship to this. Okay, the first one says all drag queens are gay. What do you think?
Definitely not. There is much more variety to that. There is, first of all, bisexual drag queens or
Mm-hmm.
heterosexual drag queens, but also not all drag queens are men. There is non-binary performance, or women who are performers and doing drag, and it doesn't matter like who they have sex with or who they are falling in love with. There is much more variety to that.
Another questions which I really like, and maybe I'm just choosing those that are that I like myself. All drag queens are bitchy. How about
Ugh,
that?
yeah, that's also kind of this stereotype. I personally, I hate when people pretend to be cool.
Hmm.
I think we have
Okay.
so much suffering and pain and isolation in this world. So being cool is the opposite of what I stand for. I want us to be warm and caring. So bitchiness, I think, is really outdated. We can be like drag queens are
Hmm.
also working a lot in collaboration. They're not bitchy. Like you cannot do that alone. You always have a team. I mean, you can
Yeah,
most. So
it's a family kind of feeling, I would
exactly, it's a
imagine.
lot of family work, and like I think the bitchiness, it can be fun. Like there's shadiness. You can be like
What's the
lovingly.
shadiness?
It's more like lovingly telling your friend that maybe they should take a shower. Like that. But if you formulate it in a funny, nice way, or like as a compliment, or it's like a humorous way to be like a mirror
Mm-hmm.
to the other, let's say like that.
Okay, maybe the last one. Um, okay, this one is controversial. Let's do it. A drag queen is less of a man.
Oh. I'm a real man. No,
Yeah, I think this really plays into stereotype.
no, but I mean, the interesting thing is, I think like it takes balls to
Mm-hmm.
be exposed, no matter like yeah, in a dance performance or as a musician or as a drag king or drag queen. Um, so like if let's say as a male person does drag, because again there is a lot of women who do drag or non-binary people who do
Absolutely.
drag, but if it's a man doing drag, it takes balls. It's a discovery, it's a journey, and you're also like really visible. And especially if you're like out in the city or in a venue, like the reactions, it's crazy. Like it's yeah, I find it hot also when guys can allow their like not only like masculine sides to be expressed. No, it's hot if people can like express their whole spectrum of who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I think I've been always, I'm a hetero guy, but I've always been very interested in actually being fragile, and I think this kind of stereotypical masculinity is also nice. There is something nice in it, but I think especially as an artist, but also as a human being, is good to be experiencing all the spectrum of things.
Yeah.
Because come on.
I'm sad for people who are like so disconnected from everything because I don't know, so afraid of looking good or looking bad. It's just like give yourself a break and go out there and
Hmm.
experience everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there is more, but let's leave it for now. I'm curious, like if you're listening to this podcast, and especially if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment if you like this format, because maybe we can continue over the next episode. So Daniel, last questions I have for you. If you had an advice to someone who wants to be doing something that you are doing, so maybe a beginner artist or someone who is interested in exploring creativity or culture, I'm wondering what would be your advice.
My advice would be to really listen to what they're passionate about. Like if you're into gardening, then follow gardening and do something about that. If you're into nail polish, like work around nail polish. Like there is. I think the most important thing is like yeah, that you connect with your passion, where your
Hmm.
energy leads you. That's the path to go, not where you think other people expect you to go. And that's also where you have something to say and to share.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. So thank you for this conversation. And Daniel, I wanted to tell you, because I didn't manage to tell you within this conversation, that I really like your music and music videos. I think they are spectacular.
Thank you.
If someone wants to check them out, they're on your YouTube, or probably somewhere else, but I saw them on YouTube.
Yeah, music is also on Spotify and all other
Mm-hmm.
different platforms. And yeah, the music videos are on YouTube. And yeah, it's worth to follow on Instagram if you want to just follow my activities. I'm going to be on a US tour very soon, like traveling
Mm-hmm.
to Texas and get beaten up by cowboys.
Texas or Austin, Texas?
No, actually Houston, and then we do also. I mean, not only Texas; it's a bigger U.S.
Uh-huh.
tour actually, but like including like road trips to the countryside, to all cattle ranches
Wow.
that became now animal sanctuaries and stuff like this. And
Oh,
I do
that's
an exhibition,
wonderful.
and yeah, no, I'm excited.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I'm so jealous of your experience right now, but
Ah,
jealous in a good way.
that's
Uh,
it's amazing, but then again, like shaving every day, makeup over it,
okay, okay,
I'm
not
gonna look
jealous.
busted. I'm gonna be exhausted with my 17 suitcases. Yeah.
Okay, this and more you can see on soyathecow.com, as well as Daniel's all social media channels, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Soya the Cow. Please check him out. He's a very interesting person, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you
Same
so
for me.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if you like this podcast, do not forget to click the like and subscribe. This helps us. This is the only payment we want from you. Thank you so much.